I'd like to now welcome Andrew Jones, the Head of Commercial Development with RateSetter Australia. Andrew will be sharing with you the customer journey, the system provider journey, and how the application process will work.
Morning, everybody. Okay, so probably a few of you want to know who RateSetter is, and I'm going to tell you about that. But and I'm also going to talk you through a little bit of how RateSetter fits into this whole process. And we sort of think of ourselves as, I suppose, the conduit or the glue that's going to connect all of the different parties in this home battery subsidy scheme together. So you've got a lot of people here, and we've got a lot of government entities and advisors, and RateSetter, in a sense, is going to be your conduit through all of that. We're experts at customer journeys and customer design and making things simple. And we're also pretty good at changing things when we get them wrong. So we're looking for your feedback. If something needs to be improved in the journey, we'll take that feedback, and if we can, we'll change that. So firstly, who's RateSetter? So if we're a technology-led lender, in fact, we're the largest retail marketplace lender in Australia, over 40,000 customers, just under $400 million of finance provided. We're the largest provider of traditional interest-bearing finance to solar systems in Australia now, and most of that funding comes from the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. So we entered into a partnership with the Clean Energy Finance Corporation a couple of years ago. They've now underwritten an additional $100 million into that partnership as part of this program to support the home battery subsidy scheme in South Australia. So it's a fantastic partnership. They're a great government organisation and really getting behind the whole solar industry along with the South Australian government. In this particular scheme, what we're doing is we're providing the administration, the finance, and some of the expertise around helping your customers get finance and the subsidy as part of this program. So we're going to talk through each step in the journey and how that actually works. So some of the things that we're doing, we're qualifying the system providers. So that's you, the system providers. It may also be someone like an energy retail company. It could even be an OEM who wants to be qualified as a system provider. And in that, we're going to go through a little bit of some of the criteria that's been set down by the government. Sorry, I'm out of camera there. Set down by the government to qualify you as a system provider. We're going to be assessing and paying to your customers the subsidy. Now, actually, when I say to your customers, it actually goes to you as system providers. So we will be getting the application from the customer for the subsidy, assessing that application, and then being the conduit for the money from the South Australian government through to you. And finally, where your customer wants it, we'll be the conduit for that finance. So we'll be doing the finance applications, and I'll talk to you about the rates and how that finance application is going to work in a minute. So those are the things that we are doing. Things that we're not doing. We're not engineers. We don't know what you do. We don't know how you do it. Ben does. We won't be providing any engineering expertise. We'll be the conduit through to Oricon and the government that does understand all these things. We're not also setting the rules. So everything that we are being requiring of your customers is something that's been set down by either the government or Oricon or another party to this. So we don't make the rules, we just administer and implement them. And finally, we're not advising customers on the suitability of a system. That's your job, that's not our job. We're not experts in that. We can help with finance, we're really good at that, but we leave what your expertise is to you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the customer journey. So when we built a customer journey, and this is the journey that we use throughout our business, we start with the system provider yourself. So the journey is really centred around, to the extent we can, your existing business processes. We didn't want to change the process in terms of causing you, I suppose, business, requiring you to change your business standard practices in order to make this work. So it starts around you. Now this schematic really talks a little bit about the different parties in the process and how they all fit together. And I'm going to go through each one of these elements in a lot more detail, but safe to say, customers will get a quote and installation from the system provider. The system provider will then provide that quote to RateSetter, and RateSetter will funnel all of the funds, being the subsidy and, if necessary, the finance from the CEFC and the South Australian government back to you, and then as the system is installed. So we're going to go through each one of these steps one by one. So firstly, the customer comes to you for a quote. Nothing unusual there, nothing changes in your practices. Very standard. Use your own systems, use your own forecasting tools. This is where things start to step up a little bit. So the next thing that happens is that you will actually enter some details from that quote, the important details from that quote, on the Home Battery Subsidy Scheme website. Now that's a website that we're building. It should be done in the next couple of weeks. It'll certainly be done before launch. It probably won't be done next week, but it will be done before the launch date. So you will enter onto the website the certain details of the quote that are required, and it's things that allow basically us to establish that the system that you're installing is an eligible system. So the quote must be for eligible equipment. So there's going to be certain systems that you will have pre-approved in accordance with the criteria that Ben talked us through earlier on. And the quote must only be for eligible equipment. The quote must be with a qualified system provider. So only qualified system providers can access the system. And it can include solar panels, and it can include other ancillary, like the work, any other electrical wiring, any other changes to the house that are required in order to install the system. So all this can be financed. Once you've entered that quote, we will actually return to you and to the customer a unique quote number. So this quote number is really the key to the whole process. So with that quote number, we're able to then connect to you and the customer a quote and a subsidy. So that quote number will be returned via email to both you as system provider and to the customer. It allows the customer to then apply for the subsidy. So the steps are, customer gets a quote from you, you give them we give them the quote number and we give you the quote number, and then the customer applies for the subsidy. As system providers, you can track the status of the subsidy application on our website, and the customer can also track the status of the subsidy application. And that's what happens next. The customer then applies via the Home Battery Scheme website for the subsidy. So they will have a quote number, they'll enter that quote number, we will immediately know what the system is, and then the customer has to complete the application for the subsidy on the website. So it should be all very, very simple. The subsidy application is going to ask the customer a whole bunch of questions. Included in those are where they live, and we will check. There's only one subsidy allowable per residential home in South Australia. We will check that that particular home hasn't received a subsidy before. It's not necessary that the customer is actually a resident of South Australia. It's not necessary that the customer is actually an individual. It can be a business, it can be a corporation, but the property needs to be a residential property located in South Australia. There is an increased subsidy, as we talked about before, for concession holders, and the way we track that is there's a concession holder identification on the electricity bill. So the last point here is that the customer will need to upload the most recent copy of their electricity bill. And that allows us to verify that they're a concession holder. The application then allows the customer, if they want it, to carry on and apply for finance. So the finance application is going to be seamlessly integrated into the subsidy application. It's going to be a tick yes or no. If the answer is yes, there'll be a few more questions. Questions for the finance will be the typical questions that a consumer would have to answer for a simple unsecured personal loan. Things like name, address, income expenses, some proof of income like bank statements or pay slips, and we will also do a credit check on the customer. One important thing about our journey is that when we do a credit check, we initially start with what's called a soft credit search, which basically means we will not put any mark on the consumer's credit file on the soft credit search, and that allows the consumer to actually shop around for various kinds of finance without damaging their credit score as they go through the process. Okay, so once that's all done, once the customer has done the application for the subsidy and finance, we'll then let them know and you know that the subsidy application has been successful or not, and that the finance application has been successful or not. So you'll get to know that via email. You'll also get to know that because you'll have an online portal which will allow you to log on and see the status of all your customers and where they are in the subsidy journey and where they are in the finance journey. Subsidy applications will normally be turned around very quickly, hopefully within minutes if the information is accurate. So we have to identify the person, so that's going to mean some information like a driver's licence potentially. We have to identify the house, so obviously a bill is going to help there. But if the information is there, we can turn this around within minutes. Equally, a finance application. If all the information is there and people are able to upload bank statements, this can be an instantaneous yes. So if we get all that information straight away, it's a very quick answer. If not, and we need a little bit more information, it normally can be done within 24 hours. So we know your business practices are, you like to be talking to a customer, and the customer likes to be able to close a transaction there and then. That's what we're aiming to do. Systems installed. So this is what you do. You know how to do this. We don't interfere in that. Once the system's installed, we will get an okay from the customer that they're satisfied that the system has been installed in accordance with what their order was. We get an invoice from you, so you will send or upload on the website to us a copy of the final invoice that the customer needs to pay, and that invoice should match the terms of the quote. Now, we understand that sometimes things change, invoices change. That's okay, but you need to let us know that that's changed, and you need to let us know why. And the new invoice, if there's any components of the system have changed, needs to be, or the new system needs to be for an approved eligible system. So if you swap out an inverter and a different inverter goes in or a different battery goes in, the new system would need to be approved. If it's just a matter of requiring a little bit more expense because maybe you needed to do some more wiring or some more work, that's okay, that's not a problem. We will be monitoring that, all the increases or decreases in expenses, and reporting back to the government on that to ensure fairness for consumers. But that's really not we're not engineers, and we're not actually looking to second guess your pricing. It's a competitive market out there, and we know you'll do what you need to do to win business. So once we've got the invoice and the customer has confirmed the system is okay, then we will pay within 24 hours. And we get that funds from the South Australian Government and from the Clean Energy Finance Corporation. And part of the application for accreditation that you make with us will include your bank details, so we know which bank account to deposit this money into. So it'll be a direct transfer to your bank account within 24 hours of the customer confirming the system's been installed appropriately. Okay, so that's the customer journey. We're also looking after the system provider qualification. So this is really a lot of the things that, well, some of the things that Ben was talking about earlier, but this is actually probably a little bit more focused on you and your business, and ensuring that your business is a responsible, credible business that has the technical capability. So the key elements to this are competency, safety, financial standing, and reputation, and Sam spoke about a lot of these things earlier as well. So, and I won't spend a lot of time covering this because you probably want to download this, but for competency, the key thing is Clean Energy Council approved retailer, and we know that there's a bit of a lead time in getting that accreditation through. So in the interim, what is acceptable is that your business has agreed to the Clean Energy Council Code of Conduct or another Code of Conduct that's been approved by the ACCC that's appropriate to the industry. Each of your installers or employees, either they're employees or contractors, need to be Clean Energy Council accredited for a solar design and install, and they also need to have a battery endorsement. So that's an important one. And we will need, in the accreditation, we'll ask for an Excel spreadsheet with an upload of all of the people that are likely to be installing or that will be installing equipment for you. Now, if you don't know on day one, that's okay. You can supplement this later on. You can let us know that a particular system was installed by somebody who wasn't on the original list. That's fine. We can update these lists, but we'll keep a register of all of your contractors and the status of their application. Safety, Sam talked about a lot. Financial standing, so we will do some background checks on your company. We will check key officers, directors and senior management's credit history. We will check the good financial standing and solvency of the company through credit bureaus. There is opportunity, and this goes to the reputation point as well. So we'll do a lot of background searches along with the government registers in South Australia. We will check all of the forums. We will check all of the websites with customer reviews to ensure that there's that your companies are of good reputation and standing. We're realistic. We understand that not every review is a positive one. If there's something that you want to highlight as part of your application and address, please do that. Then we won't have to ring up and ask, well, why did this happen? So that will be helpful, and there's a spot on the form to do that. We also ask for some information. So we, as I mentioned before, will ask for all of the accreditations of employees. That's point 2. We'll also be asking you whether you have an accreditation from the OEMs, say the battery manufacturer, to install their system. Now, I also understand that not every battery manufacturer is going to have an accreditation system. That's okay. If they don't, you just need to let us know. If you do have an accreditation, and we will be getting from all of the OEMs what their accreditation process is, then you just have to upload whatever accreditation certificate you have to our website as part of the application. We'll also ask you where you service, in terms of what areas in South Australia you service, and this is something that will actually go on the website so that consumers can actually find you. So if they're selecting a particular system and they want it to be serviced in a particular area, then we'll know and we'll have populated that on the website. And finally, we ask some questions about South Australian content. The legal piece. So this is, again, it's all done online, except for one document, which I'll talk about. So the form that you've just completed with your accreditation, the last page of that will be a legal agreement where you'll be signing up to what we're calling a system provider agreement. And basically what that says is that you'll comply with the system provider rules, which are rules that the government will be posting on its website. It also says that for each subsidy that we are processing, RateSetter will receive a fee of $50. Unless finance is included with the subsidy. So if there's financing is included, we waive the $50 fee. The system provider agreement also requires that you have acceptable levels of insurance. Now, I haven't put a number in here because the actual level of insurance is going to change for different businesses, but as a guideline, $10 million of PI and product liability insurance is sort of the benchmark number, but if your business is particularly large, that might be different, or particularly small, that might be different too. System provider rules will be published on the government website. These include things like maintaining the financial health and competency of the business, maintaining a CEC accreditation and OEM accreditation, only to install eligible equipment, comply with work health and safety, etc. Retain records for 5 years, and the warranty requirements that Ben talked about before. So 7 years on the battery, 5 years on everything else. So the agreement is largely electronic. There is one piece of paper, though, that needs to be signed. We wished we could avoid it, but we couldn't. So there is one hand-signed document that actually needs to be signed and scanned and sent back to us. We're going to make that very easy for you, though. It's just going to be a photograph. I don't think we're going to need the original, but we'll let you know on the form ultimately whether that is critically necessary or not. System provider qualification. So at that last point then, we will notify you that you've been qualified under the home battery subsidy scheme, and we will update the website with your business details, the regions you service. If you've uploaded the logo as part of your logo as part of the process, your logo will go onto the website as well. So I think the website is actually going to be a really useful tool for customers to be able to find you. It's a good website. I've seen the design of it. It looks great and it's simple to use. Okay, eligible systems. This is really Ben's territory, and we've talked about a lot of this, so I could probably skip through that. Safe to say, we'll be processing the application. It'll, again, be 100% online. It'll look very similar to the system provider accreditation. So basically, you apply on the website. You will upload a whole bunch of data, really answering all of the questions that Ben took us through earlier on. You'll upload things like your OEM accreditation, all of the technical specifications, performance, safety and security data, and some information on the warranty. Now, so just on this, there's really two options the way we see to make this easy for you. First option I suspect many people would choose, and that's go talk to your OEM. Those specifications are quite technical. Not every business is going to have all of that data to hand, but the OEMs will. So what we envisage is the OEMs will get basically a pack together for you that basically shows that a certain system is accredited, and it answers all the questions that the government and Oricon need answered. And so if you go to your OEM and you ask them for that pack, I know they haven't finished those packs yet, but that will be happening pretty soon. Then it's just simply a matter of uploading the information about that particular system direct to the website. For the businesses out there that want to do things their own way and want to do something completely different, that's completely fine too, and that's option 2. So if you have a particularly unique installation, or you're doing bespoke installations for people, then go down path 2. Fill out the application for the particular system. You need to do a different system application for every single combination of parts. And finally, finance. So again, this is part of the customer's application. You'll be notified as a customer is going through that application and as their approval comes through. It's a fully online application. It's integrated into the subsidy application. The rate is fantastic, actually. It'll be the lowest rate for solar finance in Australia, so 5.5% plus fees. So it's a fantastic rate, really designed to encourage your customers to, almost mortgage rates, to be honest. The term of the loan will be 3 to 7 years, and the amount of the loan is $2,000 to $80,000. So it really ought to cover every single imaginable scenario and system that you're looking at. Approvals will be very quick. Ideally within minutes, if all the information is, if something is missing, within 24 hours, and you will have a portal to be able to track your customer's application and see how everything's going. Thank you very much. I'll be here for some questions later on.